Are we live? I have no idea how to work this thing. I'm sorry I'm late because I couldn't get it to work. It said it wanted some streaming software. Oh, you can see me. Can you hear me though? Yep, I'm here. I don't know what happened there, but it weren't happening. It weren't playing. Can you hear me? Ah, good. Well, how are you? Here we are, live stream. Loud and clear. Oh, that's good. Okay. Super. Well, I thought it might be a good idea to sort of start going through some of the protocols I've been collecting as I go through this nonsense with the charade, the act, in order that you guys can start to grasp what difference terms. I call them protocols, but it's just things that you're going to need to reckon with if you're going to apply this either with your paperwork or in court. And so, like I've said, they're not giving us any paperwork, so it's us sending it all in. Now, whether they're putting it in the case file or not, we don't actually know. So we haven't got a clue what they're up to in any way, shape or form. So obviously then you have to prepare to get yourself in court and move your claim before the court. It's pleased to see you all. Nice one. Favourite historian. Do you know, I'm not as sharp on the history as I used to be. I think it's because I've started to reckon and realise that so much of what we think is history is absolute garbage. You know, it's difficult, really. I think anything before 1600s is very questionable. So, yeah, I mean, I used to think I were quite good on the history, but I'm not sure now that any of us know what history is, to be honest. So, yeah, it's true, though. I mean, from 1600s, we can fairly say good records were kept. But previous to that, it's just it's a fantasy, and I think you've got to go with the old books if you want to get a glimpse into history, to be honest. Which I used to have a lot of. I used to have an absolute super library full of all the books you could wish for, to be honest. Alan Wilson, yeah, Alan Wilson is good. Baron Blackett, not heard of this guy. No, they're not giving me any casement files, nothing. We've had no paperwork. The only paperwork I've had is the charge sheet. It's all pish. It's all absolute garbage. And they've created a constructive trust with a hieroglyph and a copy of my patronymic, my old inherited family name. Oh, that's Alan's partner in crime. I might then have come across him. Yeah. Well, common sense, I think, is exactly what's required these days. You don't really need anything else, do you? Using reason, as they say. You apply that yourself, you're not too bad. See, I'm not so sure about that, Body, that we were illiterate up to 100 years ago. I think because illiteracy is then classed in education, isn't it? And the Methodist construct began the education of our offspring to shift us off the old Christian ideologies and to get everybody ready and prepared to be slaves for Jesus in the Industrial Revolution that was about to take place. So I'm not so sure they were illiterate. I think they were far more aware back in the day than they ever were now, to be honest. So I don't know. Sparkly, how are you doing? Hello to everybody, by the way. Cool. Well, that's another thing as well. It's purchasing the books that you want. I mean, I was lucky in the mystery school; it was all available to me, everything. But I suppose, I don't know, I haven't been to a library for a long time, so I don't know whether you can still get the same quality of book that you could. And of course, I'm talking about up to 2000. I was the bookworm from about 1992 to 2000. Well, actually, a bit further on than that, to be honest, probably up to about 2006. And then in 2007, I joined the internet for the first time and pretty much realised that a lot of stuff that I couldn't get hold of was all over the internet. I mean, they can't find it now. It doesn't seem to be there anymore. They've just sort of, well, it's there, but Google and the likes are preventing us from actually getting to it. So, yeah, super. Philadelphia, hello there, Philadelphia. Oh, yeah, we're getting quite global, eh? That's not bad. That's good. No, they won't give me any casement files. Yeah, a lot of the books are very expensive, but I have to be honest, if you do get into the books, it's quite interesting just what is available. I mean, you know, like back to not being literate. The books you get today, it's just garbage. It's fantasy. It's Mills and Boone for the females just to wallow in fantasy. And then you've got people like Dan Brown and such who are just totally diverting your attention off to the real truth about the Templars. Because let's be honest, all the Freemasons here today think the Templars. You know, I mean, they forget that the Templars were the Templars, and here we had our own Knight Orders. The Templars have actually took over England and created Old Holborn back in the day. That's the original sort of centerpiece for the Templars on England. Yeah, so, but yeah, I mean, I probably will at some point get back into a collection of books, but obviously I've not been settled in far as living anywhere for long enough to start pulling a library together. I have to keep my sort of belongings to a minimum because it doesn't take long before I'm up and off again somewhere else. So yeah, I do need, it would be nice to get somewhere settled and then I can get back to what's important. But I have found a few of my old books though that I didn't know I had. Some really interesting books. In fact, I do have one. I'll show you. This is a super book. If you want to understand China, if you want to understand about China before the rise of this super communist corporation, Yangtze Patrol, an absolutely superb book from the perspective of Rear Admiral Kemp Trolley, US Navy, retired. And the book, it's the US Navy in China. And it's all about going up the Yangtze and the patrol boats that the American Navy were carrying out from the early 1800s up to 1941 when he retired. But unbelievable, called themselves the River Rats. And I suppose, unless you were aware of this kind of stuff, you wouldn't have actually known that this was actually going on. But this is a great book in order, if you want to understand how, once the Bolsheviks had taken over Russia, how they began from that moment on to pretty much build up the Chinese corporation into the global communism thing it is. And it's an amazing book to read. There's so much data in that. It's well worth a read. Yeah, you do. See, I used to, when I had my library, I could eat 7-10 books in a week. It was just unbelievable. I was so hungry for knowledge back then. And I kept a log. So every book I read, I would take notes. Well, I'd put notes in the book itself of points of interest. And then in the log, I would perhaps put a few of those, probably the most prominent points of interest from the book in the log. I'd give the narrative that the book was trying to give you, and then I would put in my own what I took from that book, if you will. So rather than trying to remember everything of the book, I'd just allow myself to be moved by the book. So you get an idea from one side, sort of thing. And I used to enjoy it. You'd read. So this is when I started to realise that things weren't as they were supposed to be. Historical context is that you start to find that a lot of the books you've read are actually coming from one side in any kind of argument, in essence. So then you'd start to read the other side, their perspective. So that's when you start to realise what this lot are leaving out to make it look like they were the victim, and that what they were carrying out were as a sort of a response to what they were doing. And then you can read in the middle and you can pretty much see, what's actually going on and who were the bad guys and who were the good guys, as it were. So that's how I used to do it. Yeah, Disciple of them were saying, you're quite right. They were very literate. I think the introduction of the Methodist construct was the beginning of the end for literacy amongst the common folk. And that was the Sunday schools that they started. That's how they got it going. They got the Methodist construct going and then started the Sunday schools. And that's how you got your offspring programmed. Interesting. One of my, she would have been my great-grandmother. She was a Sunday school teacher back in the day. So yeah, my ancestors played a big part in all things that were not very much caught, I have to be honest. But on my mother's side, they were all Catholics and tied to Stonyhurst and a very important home called the Duncan House, as it was then. It's now a hotel. But that was a power point around here. And my family were my mother's side of the family were very connected to that. So yeah, it's interesting. Horace was who you were referring to in the last video on Switzerland. I'm not sure I've actually referred to Sean. I have watched not for a while, but maybe a few years ago, I did watch quite a lot of his stuff. I think the problem with Sean is falling into the trap of believing that everybody in Switzerland is playing the game that he suffered while he was there, sort of thing. I mean, it's like saying that all the Americans are responsible for the Federal Reserve and that the English are responsible for the Temple Crown, the inner city. It's not the case. You've got to remember that all these nations, Switzerland, England, Scotland, the elites are playing this game, and then you can demarcate different countries as to where they have certain headquarters for certain aspects of this super game. But, the countries themselves are full of people, and the people are not pushing this stuff, or if they are, it's ignorance that's, they're going along with the game sort of thing. I think the main sort of point where you could say the elites had achieved a real dummy down of the populations was in them managing to persuade all the men that they had to obey the crown and government and go off to the First World War. For that to happen, it's pretty clear, and what the Methodist construct had probably had a couple of 100 years play at dumbing down everybody by then. But I think it's fair to say that by the First World War, the elite had achieved such a dumbing down of the population that all the men believed they had no choice but to go to war. Because from that then, the men were gone. And it was child's play after that, because you were just left with women and children. And then the damaged and broken soldiers that managed to get and survive, who the Churchill, the Oddfellows and all this moved together and pulled into a sort of underworld sort of situation. And then in America, it was prohibition. So that's how they got an underworld currency going. You know, it's a sad indictment, really. But I wrote a report about something called the Cecil Hotel, which was a very interesting place. It was like a palace on the embankment where we found the seat of power, Adelphi House, which was actually constructed for the Hanoverians when they came over. They actually constructed Adelphi House for them to live in. And that's where the Hanoverians actually lived. They didn't live in Buckingham Palace, as you know, that's just because Buckingham Palace actually belongs to the nation. It's not the home of the monarchy. It never has been. It's just our heritage, and you know. But they actually lived in Adelphi House. They don't anymore. Probably about 12 years ago when we went down there and we found this. But if you look at it today and then, every single massive, huge corporation, Fabian Society was set up in there. You know, you see, this is where you can start to see that the left and the right is just a construct, because there you have Adelphi House, the seat of what we class as the capital elite in Britain. And the Fabians were set up in there. The London School of Economics were set up in there. You know, so it's the headquarters of everything evil that we know. And the bigger, the better. So all the huge mammoth corporations are headquartered in Adelphi House today. And so that, in essence, you can see, just to get to grips with that. I have written a report. It's on my website, and it's called the John Adam Street Gang, because it's actually on Adam Street. Now, I can put a link up, actually, for you. So let's have a look. So I better start. Maybe I better spell it right. But this is a very interesting read, and what it also shows you is, you see, Vatican II. I mean, everybody is happy to say the Vatican has been a font of evil forever and ever, amen. But if that were the case, they wouldn't have had to have introduced Vatican II, because Vatican II put the Vatican under the Greek canon, and that puts it under the Russian Orthodox Church. So, you know what I mean? That in and of itself tells you that the Vatican itself hasn't always been the font of evil. It can't have been, or there would just be no need for them to install Vatican II. I'll just put this in the chat. So this is John Adam Street Gang, and this is depicting Adelphi House. But when you look at the esoteric history that I've put in there, it is quite interesting, because it's all Greek. It's all Greek. Everything about it is Greek. And in that study, we also recognise that what they call the pale horse of the four horses of the apocalypse is actually the green horse. So when you actually, you know, define the words used, it actually in the Greek means green, which you can see today it's the climate change garbage, you know. So that again, it's a very interesting study. I'm not disputing that it's not always been despotic. No, I'm not going to dispute that at all. But I think what we think we know about actually the Vatican, a lot of it has been put there so that we are happy to let it go, if you will. And I say that because I have met some Catholic priests in my time that ooze spirituality. I don't care what people say, and I'm not going off what people write, but I have met Catholic priests in my time, and they just ooze spirituality. You can sense it in them, and you can see it in them, the manner, the knowledge base, etc. And some of them are so knowledgeable in what today we class as a cult. You know, it can't, it's like I'm saying, whatever you're in, there's good and bad in everything, and which means you can take good and bad from everything. It depends, I think, how you're applying yourself. If you're a complete fruit bat, you're going to see whatever you're reading, you're going to determine it and understand it, comprehend it as you understand it in your character trait, really, aren't you? Let's be honest. And I use the term fruit bat because fruit bats they hang upside down, so they're inverted for a start, and so therefore the fruits are going to be inverted. So that's why I use the term fruit bat quite a lot, because it's an inversion. It's them that are inverted. I don't know whether that explains things. The last time that Wales started as a nation in 1701, or did I hear wrong? I think it was 1701 or 1706. It wasn't a nation. It were all this landmass were England. When they were breaking up the British Isles, that's when they invented Wales. What the demarcation back in the day was the fact that a lot of what we class as the old Britons were always being pushed ever westward. So they were sort of a group on their own, but the landmass was actually called England, obviously since the time of Alfred, So I'll try and go back through some of your emails. Well, Freemasons, who started them? Well, look, I'm a craftsman. I'm a builder. Okay, there's only one trade I don't actually do, and that's because I don't fancy doing it, and that's electrics. But every other trade I can apply myself to and give you a quality thing. And I think you go back the guilds originally. The Masonic term is basically mason, i.e., builder of stone. And the guilds, if you get into the guilds of the original guilds, that's what they were, and they kept themselves a sort of society, so that the church had to come to them to build the churches and the cathedrals. Sounds like a good business plan to me. But it's pretty clear that once the aristocracy sort of got stuck into these organisations, it became what we know it to be today, because even today, it's pretty clear that the Master Mason is the pinnacle of the fraternity. And that's your third degree. So everything above the third degree has to be something else. Well, it is. I mean, what I was being taught in the mystery school, basically, was you go way above that and you're into the Illuminati. So I was being taught how all the religions are controlled by the same priesthood. Islam, Buddhism, all of them are controlled by the priesthood. All the lot of them. And as you move up into that, so for instance, I grew up and a lot of people I knew became gangsters, and a lot of people in, let's say, the forces that were always trying to keep me in check and under control, ready to pull me in, they were quite happy that I would have fallen into that kind of category quite easily. But what they failed to recognise was that I would do whatever I wanted and make no mistake about it. I'd do whatever I wanted. I didn't care much for rules and regulations. If someone said keep out, well, that were it. I had to go in and find out why I had to keep out. And if someone said danger, that were it. I had to, why is it dangerous? So if they put a ladder up some of these used chimneys, you say, well, I were up that. I wanted to see, what does it look like from up there? So basically my character, as opposed to them kind of people, would have been, this guy's perfect to join that stuff. But what they didn't realise was I was just an adventurous guy. I wasn't a bad guy. You know what I'm saying? But I did enjoy shooting. I loved guns when I was a kid. I did enjoy shooting. And so perhaps they just thought that I would apply all that kind of stuff into a negative sense, but I didn't. But a lot of the people I grew up with did become that, But no, it's just never has been for me. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm just a guy that will push the boundaries, always have done, and probably always will do, because it's just my nature. That is my nature, sort of thing. I want to know. I want to see why. If somebody said, my father used to say something stupid to me, and he'd say he'd say something, and I said, why? He'd say, because I said so. And I'm like, you're a complete dick. You know what I'm saying? What are you on about? Because I said so. What kind of shit is that? It doesn't wash with me. If somebody's telling me something, I need to know, or I'm not taking it on. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, they must have equated that kind of character trait as, oh, this guy would be perfect for gangster stuff. No. Why would I need to do that kind of garbage when I'm You know, I've got so many trades under my belt, and I were traded up before I even left school, because I used to go to work with my father. He had his own building company. I mean, I were doing his roofs before I were 14. And then he used to let me plaster under the stairs until I got it right. And then I were plastering before I left school. You know what I mean? I already had a few trades under my belt before I left school. And then I went to college to do the bricklaying. Probably lasted about 2 weeks after I finished that course, and decided it was a complete and utter boring crap, and I wouldn't be able to do this for very long. And so I never bothered with it. I just don't like bricklaying. I can, but it's just boring. But so when you're in the mystery school, they're obviously they have a set idea of where they're going to put you before you get in there. So that determines what they're shoving down your neck, kind of thing. And for me, because I was a musician, I mean, I was involved in the music game for about 26 years in bands. And then when it got to the early 90s, by the time I got to the early 90s, I had a band. They were absolutely amazing. I mean, we were fantastic, much better live than you could never capture what we produced live on a recording. It was impossible. The energy that we created live was phenomenal. So like we were playing to crowds of 100, 200, 300 people. It was that good. And they were just, because I promoted it and I managed it, so I were involved in all the business side of it as well. And so I got to see, and this is the thing for me, I mean, from the age of about 11, when I got my first drum kit, that were me, that were my world. All I were going to be were a famous rock and roll, and that were it, nothing else. So I didn't really much care about anything else. I was just one track. But by the time it got to, say, well, it started in 1990, this band, no, 1989. But by the time it got to 1992, being around and dealing with these people involved in the music game, I started to recognise that I really didn't like what I was seeing. It was very occult, extremely occult. I don't think at that time I'd recognised that it was run by intelligence, but I'd certainly recognised that these, the higher up they went, the more occult they went, the more homosexual they went. Do you know what I mean? And to be honest, by the time it got to 1993, when we were getting interest from record companies like IRS, Phonogram, and various other companies were really showing an interest in us, I'd sort of come to the decision in myself that I'm not going to say I'm not signing into this garbage. There's no way am I doing this. And pretty much felt pretty sorry for the band, because I'm thinking to myself, these guys are raring to go. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to be doing this, not for no long. As it happens, it fell apart all by itself, as they tend to do. But that's where I began to see how the music industry and all the ideas I'd had as from 11 came tumbling down, basically. But what I did do then is I started to write dance music and trance and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed that stuff. And then, so I started clubbing about 1994, Cream, all the big clubs then back in the day. And I think that's when trance really was a beautiful scene, because it was basically classical music on a beat, and the ecstasy just added to that. And so I'd gone through the 1980s as a youth. I mean, that was probably the most violent decade I've ever known. That it was just insane. I mean, but I didn't mind it. I were okay with that, But because it was just the norm, it's looking back that you can see what a decade that 80s were for violence. It was insane. I mean, in Accrington, where I live, it were absolutely packed out. This place was a great little town to go out. They used to come out from all over round Lancashire to come to Accrington, especially on a Sunday night, because Sunday night was even in Accrington. But the violence were just, it was mad. But it was just normal. It was what everybody just understood. So it was quite easily for them to, as soon as they started to introduce drugs as a currency, 87-ish, the violent kind of guys all of a sudden had something to jump on and earn a crust from, dealing the drugs. So it was very easily put in and implemented in I would say, in the 80s. So by the time you got to, say, 93, 94, the violence had changed from just fisticuffs, Queensberry rules, to killing people. You know, they were like it actually turned to pack animal. That's what happened. I saw in the early 90s, whereas in the 80s it were one-on-one. It just started moving further and further into using glasses to stick each other in faces and stuff like that. But then by the time drugs were sort of like coming out to the people, then it were getting seriously strange. But it would pack animal kind of stuff. So if groups of lads were going out and one guy were having a fight with one guy, they'd all be on them. And that's when they started killing people, you know, and kicking them in their heads on the floor. And that closed a lot of clubs. It got very serious, that, especially in Blackburn. But also in Accrington, there were a few of that. And then the bouncers were all involved in it, the dealing of it. So they started getting a bit ridiculous. And they ended up starting to kill people. So you could see this change going as drugs were being installed. But by the time it got to 94, the music that were coming out in the trance and the techno was just unbelievable. And you go out there and it was just a complete opposite to the 1980s. Nobody were looking for violence. Everybody were well dressed. And everybody were just having a super time. So I then moved into that, and then I started promoting the clubs, putting on DJs and such. So that was my. So yeah, back to the point I was getting. So when I was in mystery school, what they were actually doing, were trying to push me to Phil Collins, believe it or not. They were trying to push me into that kind of circle. But lucky for me, I couldn't stand Phil Collins. I thought he was probably the crappiest artist there's ever been. So that weren't happening either. And they were doing that through a company called AMS Neve, which creates top quality recording studio equipment. And that was about 94, after the band had finished, and that's where it was going. And that were Masonic. That were all Masonic, trying to move me into that direction, you know. So, but no, even that, like I said, by the time that came about, I'd already recognised that the music industry in general was just full on a cult, you know. And then as I moved through the mystery school, I was sensing then the secret society kind of stuff. But the first secret society that actually approached me was the Knights of Malta, and that would have been about 1988. But I didn't have a clue what I had no idea about these things then. You know, it's only in retrospect, looking back, that I can recognise that kind of stuff. So, you know, if they're onto you because they think you might be a future enemy or an ally, as you start to work this stuff out, you can start to go back over your childhood, and you can see their play in your entire childhood. You know, it's I mean, they're so powerful, and so they're powerful because they're watching you as a child. They're watching for characters. They're looking for fighters. They're creating fighters, you know, by causing havoc in the families and such like that. The power that these secret societies have, they're like the farmers, and we're all the animals, and you know, and as children, that's when they've got a lot of power over you, really, because you haven't got a clue. And if your parents, in any way or shape, are involved with these kind of groups, or not necessarily involved because they know it, but because those are the people that are around them, you're really in trouble. You know what I mean? Because it just gives them even more power to influence you growing up, to try and determine the path you're going to take when you get older, you know. And that's exactly how this world works. So by the time you're getting to leaving school age, they've already marked out your path. They have, you know. And it's only if you remain autonomous that you're not going to fall for it. You know what I mean? You're not going to fall into the traps that they set for you. And that really needs to be understood by a lot of people. So in the mystery school, I were being taught the Illuminized languages. And as I said, you're being shown that, you know, it doesn't matter. If you're in a religion, I don't care how devout you are, you haven't got a clue what you're serving. Not a clue. And if you think when you're worshipping, you're actually worshipping to where you think it is, no. The religion's specifically to come between that energy that you're offering up, and then it takes it Yeah, that's how the religions work. Now, the further you're going in, you're starting to they're teaching you all about these masters. God, it's a complete load of shit. Honestly, so you've got to be thick to fall for it, or you're concentrating on money. You're concentrating on status. Do you know what I'm saying? See, these are it's like going through the Grail castles. Each castle has a specific paradigm. So one you'll go through is money. If that traps you, that you'll stay off that castle. That's where they'll take you. The next one. So if you pass through that one, the next one might be all sexual desire kind of thing to satisfy. And if that's where you're focused at your route, that castle will keep you, and that's how they'll manipulate from that standpoint. Then the other one is bloodlines. You know, they'll obsess you with, oh, your bloodline goes back to this, goes back to that. Well, I couldn't give a monkey's toss about my bloodline because my bloodline is only based in the body that I'm in. It's not who I am. So I'll try and utilize the attributes of that bloodline without thinking that I am that bloodline. That's another castle that traps you. If you get trapped in there, that's your foundation. That's where they'll take you off to where they want you to go. And there's 8 castles in respect of that, pretty much dealing with our makeup, character makeups and what we are down here. It's really clever stuff. So if you're into witchcraft, or the craft, the arts, that's another castle. So as you go through each one, well, I can only go off my experience, but I went through each one and didn't get trapped by any of them because I saw through all of them, basically, and I had control of my own sexuality, because that is one of the biggest pulls they've got, sexuality. And what they offer you on a plate, you know, as you're going through that castle, it's difficult not to, you know, play along. But I was lucky in that I got that out of my system when I was a youngster. I mean, I was very popular with the old girlies when I was a young lad. So I sort of, I'd come, by the time I got to 18, 19, I'd pretty much, there weren't much I didn't know about boy-girl relationships, let's put it that way. And that stood me in good stead, I suppose, when I entered this mystery school. But I didn't get trapped in any of the castles. But the masters, what they're trying to portray to you is that there are these masters at the top of everything, bringing all this gnosis for you. But a couple of books in specifically where I saw through it, it was down to the original Krishnamurti, okay? And this book were trying to present to me that he was the chosen, this was the precursor to the Christ, or this Antichrist, yeah? And, you know, all the forces in the world of power had put themselves behind this guy, and this guy, I'm studying his talks and what he was saying. And I liked him. I thought this guy was a genius. But then, all of a sudden, the original Krishnamurti, he had an awakening. Because from all out of nowhere, he started to preach this. You don't need any masters. You don't need anybody. That's what he was preaching. So all of a sudden, these huge forces in the world that have been bigging him up as the precursor to the coming Antichrist were telling you that he'd gone off track. Now, contemplate it like this. For 10 years, he's been bigged up from every orifice of Illuminati stuff as the world teacher, right? And that went on for 10 years. They bigged him up as the world teacher. And then as soon as he started saying you don't need any of these dicks, then all of a sudden he's not the world teacher anymore because he's gone off track. Right? So are you understanding it as I'm seeing it here? So on the one hand, he's the world teacher, which means he's come here to teach everybody down here. But then as soon as he's telling you don't need all these dickheads, he's gone off track. So straight away then they're telling you, oh, but hang on a minute, no, we know more than him. Do you know what I mean? Can you see what I'm saying? And that, for me, was the trip out. That's when I realised what a load of shit all this theosophical garbage was. Now, that's not to say that everything that theosophy pushes out is untrue, but it's the way that they put it. It's like everything in this world, the religions, it's the way they present it. Because it's always being presented to put you in a hierarchy. You with me? That there's always somebody above you who knows more than you. So that's the trickery with theosophy, and you've got to be really careful. But that was the trip out for me. That was it, and I just thought, nah, don't talk out your ass. What kind of, you must think I'm stupid kind of thing. So I did the remaining years of the mystery school basically with my own insight from that event. So by the time it come to the end of it, instead of joining this super powerful elite and living the life of Raleigh and having all the money in the world and all the respect in the world, I said get stuffed and expose what they were doing in a local school in my town. And whew, they didn't like that. They didn't like that one bit. So that's why I ended up operating in this opposition to this global elite. It's not some kind of choice. The choice was actually made within the mystery school, but it weren't necessarily that. I didn't realise I was going to carry on doing this kind of stuff, but I just thought to myself, there's no way am I doing that. But I also realised as well that it wasn't going to be any easy trip going against them at that point, you know, and they made that very clear actually on many occasions, you know. But basically I just said, well, tough shit, you know, this is how it works for me. You better get used to it kind of thing. I'm not joining that shit. It's garbage. Sorry. But yeah, the mystery school is very clear. It shows you well that, and that's the point I was getting to with the gangster stuff. So you've got all your gangsters at the bottom living in a life of shit, you know, threats everywhere, this is everywhere. But when you move up there, they've all got suits on. The coke dealers have got suits on. The organisations that protect the cocaine is the police. Yeah? The police are a corporation now. They'll work for whoever's paying the most money. And drug dealers pay a lot of money to be protected. Okay? That's how it works. Not all of them. You know, you're always going to have your boys out there that have got their own networks and are doing it on their own back. And them are the ones that are in prison a lot, you know? But there's them that never see a prison cell and never see a court. They're your big boys in this game. So as you start to move to them levels of understanding, you can see that everything that we see as normal in the normal world, it's like a farmyard, you know? And you're being farmed. You're being farmed and you're being guided in everything you're doing. You're not autonomous in any way. You're being dragged by your nose, but you just don't know it. Once they know what your weakness is, once they know what your weaknesses are, they can lead you on a merry dance forever and ever. It's that easy. And that they work out while you're a youngster, you know. So that's all that garbage. It's complete shite. So yeah, Sean Ross, back to Sean. He's still a very angry man. Now, I were angry. When I came out of that mystery school, I were angry. It took me 6 years. 6 years to get some kind of balance. It wasn't no easy trip. No, I mean that. It's not an easy game, that stuff, because obviously you're being broken down to your base root and you meet the dweller on the threshold then, as it were. You see that pure evil does exist and that pure evil's got its eye on you and it wants to coax you in, you know. And if you don't have the spiritual protection, you've had it. You're going. You're off. You're going to enter the new world order, basically, one way or another. So to not do it, that's a labyrinth that no Theseus didn't leave a string in that one, you know. And it took me 6 years just to get back to a semblance of balance. It was no easy trip at all. So Sean is still at that angry point. You know, he's angry at what happened to his family. He's angry at what happened to him. Well, I had all that myself during that 7 years in the mystery school because I had 4 children. You know, it would have been a lot easier if I hadn't have had a family. But I had 4 children, so the anger, you know, I had after that was immense. And what Sean Ross needs to do is recognise that he undermines his knowledge base in the fact that he's so angry and he's blaming an entire nation of Switzerland for the works of the elect. He's not going to, he won't move forward in a spiritual sense until he empties himself of his anger. But that said, he's seeing the game. He's seeing the symbolism. That's a fact. So, but yeah, my advice to Sean, if anybody knows him, would be to work on himself, because if he gets himself to balance, the guy, the spirit side, the spiritual side will come to him and will move him where he needs to be, so he can actually do what he's doing and make it make sense, But he's far too angry. A library of 2,000 occult PDFs. Yeah, send that away, matey. I mean, there's not much I haven't read about the occult back in the mystery school, I have to say, but send away, my friend. That would be excellent. I have Mega, actually. I don't know whether Mega works for you, but I find I don't have any problems downloading huge files on Mega. That is a good one. But if you want to send the torrent, send away. Because, like I said, I do need to get back at some point to getting back to a library. Because, and it's been pointed out all the time I've been on the internet, I do know a lot. And a lot of the time, I'm not sourcing it. Well, I can't source it because I have forgot which book I read, where I got it from, So at some point in the future, I am going to actually have to get to that point again where I can source and reference and bring you along so that you actually understand what I'm saying. But I can assure you, what I know, I'm not making it up. There's no point. Why would I make it up? What am I trying to achieve? My only aim is to help people find the balls, recognize that they're male or even female, because we've got the same opportunity to have courage. It's not just a male thing. It should be, because that's the male's role. Female's the nurturer, the male is the protector. But, you've got this nonsense after the 60s where it became popular for the generation to free love. Back to Cecil Hotel. Cecil Hotel is where all this started, this debauchery, and it was the Roaring Twenties. So what they actually did musically is they mixed the blues and swing and came up with jazz. Now, jazz is dissonant. It's dissonance, so it takes you off balance. Yeah, it's not music you want to be listening to. And the brass, it changes your resonance to off balance, to the negative. Okay, this is how they do it with music. Music's so important as a control mechanic. And people really don't get it. But then if you gave it some thought, if you actually just contemplated it, just what effect music has on you yourself, you'll start to realize why it's so important to the way they can control the generations, to divide them. So your kids, you get one set of music and entertainment, and as soon as you're an age, it changes for your kids, so that there's no connection between offspring and mother and father. And this they played like a violin, Pied Piper, But they formulated it and pushed it out into Freemasonry. And this was in order to install the Schofield Bible, believe it or not, because it wasn't being took here by the laity or by the Protestant vicars. They weren't having it. The Catholics would never have had it because they understood a bit more of the esotericism than I would say a lot of the Protestants did in the day. But the Protestant vicars were not accepting the Schofield Bible at all because they could see the blag on it. They could see that blag. And I've written a report about that, taken from the works of a guy called, I can't remember his name, but I do cite him, obviously. And he points out the blags that the Schofield Bible put in to take Protestants off the Bible and into Zionism. So they created this Roaring Twenties. In the Roaring Twenties, that's when they debauched the aristocracy in this Cecil Hotel. But also, they had a massive influx. They were inviting all the Freemasons from America, the Scottish Rite, into this Cecil Hotel, twisting them up to the Schofield and then sending them back to America. And this is how Zionism took hold in America amongst the Protestants, the WASPs. So 20s, they debauched the aristocracy. Then from, say, the 20s up, then we had the Second World War, didn't we? That again changed everything completely. And then after that, that's when they started to, they were vaccinating. And He started from 46 to, they claim publicly 57, but I found it went on to 67. So they started to vaccinate every kind of bacterial infection into that generation, the war generation. The 50s, the Beat generation, they created the script of rebellion, right, in the 50s. So it went from looking up to those that were good at sport, those that were good at academia, to the rebel, the leather jacket, the motorbike, the fags, the drugs, okay? So the 50s wrote the script, and then in the 60s they launched LSD onto an Atlas population and rock and roll, more importantly. I mean, people don't realise, but most of the rock and roll music was created by one bunch of musicians. The top session musicians, and I can't remember the name. It might come to me, but most of the 60s music were written by top music session musicians. Nearly all of it, to be honest. Yeah, nearly all of it. So when they launched LSD, it was all free love, contraception, abortion, yeah, breakup of the family. Because what they were doing there was affecting the procreation of the race. And people don't realise that this is a much bigger game, you know, and you can say it started in the First World War. Second World War, they debauched, then they got the Schofield in. Through the 40s, they started to medically intrude on the populations, and they put herpes, all these ridiculous conditions into the population on the vaccines, and then wrote the script in the 50s, launched LSD, and it's all been about demolishing the family unit, because the family unit is the only enemy that's strong enough to prevent these unclean from getting into your nation and into your world. You know, it's been a long game that they've played, and it's worked to a treat, because you look at your kids today and the music that they're listening to, it's gutter music. You know, it's gangster music, and it's garbage. But the reason why it's so popular is because it's based on a quality rhythm. So the drum beat's perfect, yeah, and the bass lines are perfect. So straight away they grab you at your bass resonance. So whatever garbage is being pumped out lyrically, although that might not be what it grabs you, it becomes you, because repetition. You keep listening to something constantly, that, and you take it on. And that's another form of torture. It's actually, it's come from torture, is that, you know? So music is now being used as a form of torture. And people don't realise this. So I'm going to have a look now at some of your stuff. Oh. Well, they have been manipulating the books, but a lot of the books that I had were old books, you know, the real old books. Now, I enjoyed reading the philosophers, going through the philosophers, the great philosophers. But what it taught me was these philosophers were so left-brained. So the mechanic of how they wrote concepts was good, but they'd always get to a point in their life where they grow spiritually, and perhaps the right side of the brain would start entering. And instead of accepting what were coming through from the spiritual, they would then continue the rest of their life backing up the garbage that this new thing that they'd started to come into to avoid it. Why? Because they didn't want to undermine all the work they'd done that had made them think they were amazing and fantastic. And that's what I found with most of the philosophers. They get to a point where they were talking out their ass just so that they didn't have to look stupid for everything they'd done before. I think the three philosophers that I appreciated the most was Socrates, who we got through Plato himself, but Spinoza. Spinoza was an amazing mind, and I think it was because he wasn't all left-brained. He was operating in a balanced form. And Spinoza is a very, very, very powerful philosopher. And I believe he was Jewish. or Hebrew. He wouldn't have been Jewish, he would have been Hebrew. But I have to say, he was by far, he impressed on me by far the most. An excellent mind, or an excellent soul, let's say. So they totally manipulated everything book-wise. And then, of course, now with Hollywood. I mean, you can see it now. If you're of an age now, you can see how all the films we were brought up on, they're rewriting them, they're redoing them all. And they're missing out all the points that would move against Israel, move against Noahide. So they're rewriting all these movies for these younger generations, and it's missing the core narrative that these other films were trying to keep in the mix. They're doing it with books. They're doing everything. They're even rewriting all your DVDs, your videos that you buy. They're editing them and re-putting them out. So you think you're getting the original, but you're not. And people miss that as well. Oh yeah, this is a huge censor. This is a huge edit of everything that's been going on for quite a long time, to be honest. You know. But I'm talking, I mean, you guys already know this kind of stuff anyway. They are expensive, though, books. But you can access, if you do have money, you can access some of these world libraries. So you can. I mean, I haven't got a penny pot to piss in at a minute, but if you've got the money, you can access. Because the books haven't disappeared, and they never do disappear. Alexandria's knowledge never disappeared. It just was taken out of the mix for the lay, the common people. You know, nobody's going to burn. If you're an elite guy, you're not going to burn down all that history. You'll burn it down when it's empty. You're not going to burn it down when it's full of stuff. You want it. You want it because you want power. You want the power it's going to give you because you know what they don't know. That's how it works, you know. That's exactly how it works. Thumbs up. Does that help when you do thumbs up and all that kind of stuff? Well, let's bag it. Evening to everybody if I've missed you. Only the... Yeah. Well, I actually... Because before I went to the internet, well, work I actually did was in written form, and I used to hand deliver it, basically. And I basically put all our councillors and MPs in Lancashire on notice of what were coming now. And I put them on notice for that because this is what I was seeing at Mystery School. So from 2001 to 2007, I put all the councillors, MPs, but not just here. I mean, I ended up in London. You know, I were pretty much all over the country sticking my oar in, but not on the internet. It was nothing to do with the internet at all. I'd never been on the internet until 2007. And it was interesting. But by the end of that, I basically written 3 books. So I formulated them into 3 books, index and everything. But the only numpties that wanted to publish them was the Masons. Nobody else were interested. And I just thought to myself, well, I'm not playing that game because they'll cock it up. So I put them on a website for everybody to just look at if they were interested. And then last year, I reminded all the councillors here that I'd put them on notice from 2001 to 2007, and they killed the website. Because I built these websites between 2007 and 2009. And they locked me out of them in 2009, so I could never go back in them. And I've just noted they've killed one of them. They've killed another one, lifeinthemix.co.uk. I think lifeinthemix2.co.uk is still up, but the other one isn't. So that's 3 websites now that they've killed, that they left up but blocked me out of from 2009. So it looks like they're going to kill them all, but I'm not really that bothered. A lot of the stuff in there I wouldn't write today anyway. Total dumbing down. I mean, these young kids today, it's so sad. And that's the failure of their parents, because of the failure of their parents, because of the failure of their parents. And we can take that back to the First World War. The failure is massive. And these young kids today have absolutely no idea what is about anything if it's not off the phone. And who controls their scripts on the phone? Not you. Not you. I mean, how many of them are going to have this vaccination? It's so sad. That again, we're in the same position as they were in the First World War. Everybody believes they have to do what the government says. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's beyond redemption. And this is this is the conclusion of the breaking up of the family. That's what it is. That's what it's been all about. The 20th century was all about breaking up the family. And music was the major part of that in Hollywood by far. It's really sad. It is so sad. And drugs are a major. They're not what you think they are. They're not what you think they are at all. It opens you up. It opens you up to the unseen. And then if you're not strong, you've had it. It'll take you for the rest of your life. And they've encouraged all these younger generations to play with the witchcraft. They've no idea what they're doing. No idea whatsoever. But the Quillipoth has opened. The Quillipoth is opening. And the Quillipoth need men, male and females, to attach to. That's what it's all about. That's what all this witchcraft, all this sorcery, your Harry Potter, all these shit-ass books, is to give the Quillipothic realms and entities within the ability to attach to you. And drugs are the greatest method of breaking down all your barriers in your auric field. That's what goes on. I mean, when I were in the club scene, I was watching that side of it, and these clubs were full of covens, and they were picking out the weak, they were picking out the gullible, and after party you went, and there you go. That's your gaming, and sex was the biggest pull by far in that 1990s rave scene. I watched it all. Happening, and a lot of these clubs, not so much the big ones, but the little ones were next to slaughterhouses. Well, what do you think's feeding at slaughterhouses in the unseen? Because what do they feed off? They feed off energy. And fear and death, blood sacrifice, is the greatest method of producing energy. So you can imagine what kind of entities in the unseen are all over these slaughterhouses. And naturally, you're going to build a club there, or a Cub Scout thing, or something for kids. What are they doing? People don't understand this stuff. They have no concept of this stuff. I mean, you've got rid of Dad out of house, and Mum loves Harry Potter, Lady Gaga. All the filth and piss. Why? Because they're fantasists. They've been reading garbage, Mills and Boon, and they live in a fantasy world. And they think that's the sacred feminine. You know what I'm saying? They're ridiculous. What has happened to the females today is obscene. Obscene. And the kids are suffering for it. The mothers have attached themselves to all sorts of garbage, and the kids have been used by that in the unseen. This is what they've done. Break up the family unit. They're in. They've got it. And this is why they've got it. This is why we're in this position today. It's not good. Well, yeah, the trivium, of course, gone. It's gone. Apart from in the elites. But even so, now this is another thing as well, that don't think that these elite schools are lovely and pleasant. Far from it. I mean, I know a lot of people that you'd class in aristocracy. I've met a lot of people in my time doing this. No, it's evil. I mean, you're dropping your kid off at 6-year-old and saying, see you. We'll see you when we see you. 6-year-old dropped off into one of these schools. Paedophile mania. If the teachers aren't pedophiles, the kids that are there in with you are. There's your fact system. This is what it's all about. It's about breaking down your children's autonomy. The public schools are the worst. So don't be thinking the elite public schools have it, fairy cakes and lollipops and that. It's not. It's even worse for these people. You wouldn't want to be born into an elite family. My God. What chance have you got if you're born into it like that? So, we have to, you have to see it in these terms, because that is the territory. It's the reality. The higher up they are, the worse it's been for them. They don't know anything else. And they're debauched at such a young age. It's terrifying. So I don't think anybody gets, You know, we're all equal in the sense that we're pushed into what we're pushed into, and we all have the ability to break it. We have the ability to break the spell upon ourselves, and then you can move in the right direction. And a lot of you guys have done that. Hence the reason why you find my sort of work interesting. You know, so that's the way I look at the world, because that's what I've experienced. You know. Yeah, I mean, this court thing, it's ridiculous. I mean, come on, let's be honest with you. We could snap this up in 2 minutes. It's not hard. But I'm moving in a new direction. It's new to me. So I'll give you a bit of an insight. I'm not making witness statements. I'm making statutory declarations. Totally different game. I'm telling them who I am and what the rules of the game are when you're dealing with me. Okay? So I am now a man, and I hold the house young. Okay? The house young. So we're back to medieval. If you've watched Game of Thrones, you'll know what I'm saying. House Lannister, House Stark, House Snow. Right? This is how these lot operate. They set the declaration, and that's how you're dealing. If anybody's dealing with you. So this is a new game that's being played, and it's complex for me because it's new to me. It's something I've not ever thought of before, to be quite honest. For me, before it was just keeping myself in man or on person in the private, which my title gives me. Because that title doesn't have anything about not user's ID or anything like that. There's nothing of that on it. You know, it's a different game altogether, that document I've got. I don't know whether it's totally different from everybody else's entry of birth, but somebody was a smart cookie when I was born, I reckon. Because I very much doubt my dad knew what he was doing, you know what I'm saying? So who knows? But it's a totally different game that we're playing here. But they're just playing in an act. It's just a complete and utter act that they play. And it needs to be shown to be so, in a manner that people can get it, that are not getting it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because these Johnny-come-latelys, they need to be exposed for what they are. And people need to see them for what they are. And, you know, they're going to try and deal with us in a manner that's not going to please any of us, believe me. And they know what they're doing. You know, they know what they're doing. These elite people, they know exactly what they're doing. They've chosen fascism because the elite told them they have to do fascism. And they're going along with it. Because when you get up to that level, fascism, democracy, they're just systems to them. They don't actually believe in them. They believe in whatever the elites tell them to do. Because they're sucking the shit out of it. It's like the mystery school. They got caught in one particular castle. You know, when they know your route, when they know where you're at, that's what they'll give you. You're happy as Larry because that's what you're getting, what you want. It's like the Masonic lodges. Most of the Masons have no idea of anything I know because they're not going to be taught it. They're there for a reason. They're there to be the public face of what is a priesthood organisation. Okay? And so when you're being groomed, they already know exactly what you like. They know what you don't like. Okay? They know everything about you. And you're being invited to a lodge and put amongst a group of people that are the same as you. So you only know what they're giving you, and you think you've arrived in your little heaven. That's the game that's played in these secret societies. It's clever stuff, but it can only work if you're weak. It can only work if you're a fruit bat. It can't work if you're real. And it can't work if you are moral. It can't. It can't. It just doesn't work. So it's a sad indictment on the world today that immorality is running riot, to be honest. Running riot everywhere. Evening, Jason. Hello from New Zealand, Craig. How are you doing, my friend? Sir Richard. Lancelot. Hey. Good evening, good evening. The winners do indeed write the history. But the thing is, this is what people don't know. It doesn't matter which side wins, the winners are the priesthood. There is no sides up there, apart from them doing their own internal battles. Because they all hate each other, and they all want to be top donkey. But they'll all obey. They'll all be obedient to the game. Because that is the game. Because if they're not obedient to the game, the unseen forces that see everything won't give them the position they want. You see, when you get into that game, it's the obedience that puts you further and further up. Yeah. So the more you see, people think that you're looking at these dipsticks with the suits on and the castles and the big cars, and you think, oh no, they are the most absurd slaves you could imagine. There's nothing to them. They don't have a life. The character, the personality of the soul they are is over there. It's been shoved out. It's gone. It's not there. These quillipothic entities are in that shell. Yeah, that's what's running that shell. Who they were has gone. It's not there. It might come in now and again and get a glimpse. Excuse me. It's gone. That shell has been taken. So don't be thinking that if you knew them as a child, that when you look at them now, that that's got that innocent kid's gone. Something else looking outside them eyeballs, and it's nothing to do with the character that you might have known back in the day. The quillipothic realm is being opened, and it needs Atlas male and females to operate in this world. That's what's going down. That's exactly what's going down. And they're killing off the majority of people in the West and importing them that are already that realm. Yeah, in the lesser nations. And that's what's happening, folks. So if you think they're thinking lockdown is going to finish, and no. It's going to get a whole lot worse. Lockdown is just about control. It's changing the way you behave and giving them more and more control so that they can then unleash this crap upon you, upon your children. Because they're after your females and they're after your children. They're going to enslave them. This is how it works, the system. When you're looking back in history and you're seeing slavery, that's what it is. And now it's here again now. And it's all over the world this time. You know, Satan's had his 1,000 years. Now he's trying to scoop it up so that he can remain. Yeah, he's had his 1,000 years. And Jesus isn't coming back. Yeah? It's a total nonsense, this idea that if you speak nice to Jesus every day, you go into heaven. Jesus said, follow me. So if you want Jesus to come back, that's when everybody here is following his lead. He only brought the message. He brought the way and the truth to the light. That's what he brought. And he said, follow me. He didn't say worship, he said follow. So if Jesus is returning, he has to return in you because you're doing exactly what that man did. Okay? And I don't care whether he were real. I don't care whether he were, as the Druid said, one of their initiates. I don't care what colour he might have been. I don't care what religion they try and claim him to be. He certainly wasn't a Jew, he was a Hebrew. The Jews were those that followed the laws of man. His entire path, when he took it up, was against the laws of man. That's what he were against, to reinforce the laws given by God. So Jesus is coming back. He's not coming back with sandals on. He's coming back through you if you choose to be a man or male, female. So there you go. There's going to be a lot of disappointed people, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? It's a lot of disappointment going to be had. Especially them that have spent their whole life worshipping. And not just Jesus. I'm talking about worshipping in all its forms. Mosques, synagogues, temples. You're worshipping an imposter. You're worshipping Best way to put it. You, Evan, religion. In it comes and sucks on all the energy that you're going to give. And it ain't going up there, it's going here. That's how I understand spirituality and your connection to the heavens. Or not. And the Quillipuff, you can only get in there when that's been successful. You're blocked. There's none of that coming down to you. There's none of that shining anywhere near you. And therefore, you're not going to shine that out. That's there. Quillipuff are in. You're shining Quillipuff it. Or hell, as they call it. You know, but let's go true life. Why not? That's the guts of the esotericism in relation to understanding how heaven, hell, and the Middle Earth works. You know? Is anybody bored shitless yet? Well, Russia were annihilated by the Bolsheviks. Totally. And then again, in the Second World War. You see, when you look back to history, Russia wasn't anything like it is today. It didn't go all the way over to Siberia. It was Moscow. That was it. And maybe a little bit over here. Catherine the Great took over right over to Siberia. She took it off the yellow races, the Mongols, the Turkic tribes. And then they annihilated the Baltic tribes because they wanted to get to the Black Sea. And from that, all the Khazar imprisoned were put in pogroms, turned into indentured servants, and then sent across the world to set up these financial systems everywhere. The legal system, the banking system. That's what happened. I mean, I don't even accept that King Boulon had a mask conversion. I don't buy that for a second. I think that's bullshit and garbage. I don't believe it. I don't accept it as real. I really don't. Everything changed after Catherine the Great took them. And she was Prussian, Anhalt bloodline. But they didn't just take over at the same time. The 1700s is pretty much, you could say, like the 20th century. Shitloads of war, and the elite took more territory. So that happened in the 1700s, and it happened again in the 20th century. So if you want to go back from that, it happened in Crusades. Yeah, and so that's how they've done it, basically. It's clever stuff. Secret City, no, I've not seen that. Well, the Russians were Catholic. But after the Bolsheviks, it became Greek. As I said at the beginning, Vatican II is the Greek. It's Vatican II put the Vatican under the Greek Orthodox, which is the biggest expression of it today is the Russian Orthodox Church. Vatican II put the Vatican under the Russian Orthodox Church. That's bolshevism. That's what it is. So the Vatican now, if you don't like it, that's why you don't like it. And let me put it this way. My mother was taught by nuns post-Vatican II. Huh? And obviously she thinks I'm completely insane. You know, she just can't. She doesn't have the capacity to understand. Anyway, that said, last year, she was getting a bit upset because I ended up homeless again. And she was going on and on about, why do I do this? I said, Mother, I'm sure, being taught by nuns, are you telling me they didn't tell you about all this? And you know what she said? She said, of course they did, but they didn't teach us we could do anything about it. That's profound. That is profound. Because from Vatican II onwards, they were terrified by all this nonsense, but put down in the situation to stand down, there's nothing you can do about it. The Secrets of Fatima is another mechanic to stand you down. Or it might not be, because if you go into that, the basic premise is you must bring Russia. We had to keep Russia in the Western Christianity. But it didn't. It went to the East. Nostradamus talks about the East. Well, that's Byzantium. We're talking about the Byzantine Rome. Comnene, or Cohens, as you know them. The Comnene, House Comnene, very powerful. Very powerful. And they weren't Christians. Enough said. Very powerful family. They ran Armenian as well. I mean, they were probably responsible for slaughtering all those Christians. So yeah, Russia isn't what you think. And Putin were pretty much brought up by Chabad Lubavitch. That's who Putin serves. You know? Now, I once studied a thesis that suggested that Stalin and Chairman Mao were sired by the same mother. Different fathers, but the same mother. And it went into a bit more expansive detail in relation to certain players around both of those children as well. Interesting stuff, you know. So much stuff that you have to really seek out if you want to see it. Well, look, Bodhi, if you like Dan Brown, that's fine. I am not taking anything away from what you want to see. That's fine. But let's look at what's happened. English Masons think the Templars. The Templars are the enemies of England. Always were. We had the Knights Hospitallers. They had the Knights Templar. Knights Templar, 9 Jews from French aristocracy. The Templars removed all the land from all the gentry by having them hand the land and property into trusts, to trustees. King John then made it plain to all the trustees, once they'd all been hoity-toited off to the Crusades, that the crown under John would support their claim to the lands. You've really got to start to see the game. That's what the Templars were all about. Templars, temple builders. Yeah. And the hospitals today, hospitallers, death camps. They are temples of sacrifice. That's what they are. All of them. Now, that's exactly what they are. And it's been going on for a bloody long time, mate. The Knights of Malta were took over, subverted by the Jesuits in 1796, 7 or 8, around that time, under command of Napoleon. Napoleon's task was to remove Europe of Christian kingdoms. That's what he did. And then they inserted all these supposedly Rothschild offspring into the new kingdoms. So I don't believe the Knights of Malta have always been bad. I really don't. But I'm not stating facts here because we don't know. Like as I said, you cannot trust history beyond the 1600s. You just can't. It's impossible. Joseph Scaliger. I've written a report about Joseph Scaliger on my website. Just put it in search bar at top. Our entire chronology that we think is correct was created by Joseph Scaliger, a con man, a dipstick, an upstart. And you get a glimpse of that from Sir Isaac Newton when he created a real chronology for Queen Anne. Because and I've got a report about that as well, so just put Isaac Newton in a search bar. And basically what he brought to the fore was the fact that each victor has added thousands of years to their own bloodlines to give them more credibility. So our history, in essence, is not as big as long as we think. And I really do. I am coming to the conclusion that something's happened between in the 1700s to the mid 1800s. Something so massive, like a tectonic event, that the established way and civilization that was no more, and in came all these freaks and claimed to be of that. And then your mud flood is where you're getting that from. You see, I don't care about flat Earth. I couldn't care a toss whether it's flat, pink, purple, with what. I don't care. What does it matter? I don't fall off. So why am I going to waste my time bothering about whether Earth's round or flat? It doesn't matter. I don't care. If they show me some reason why it matters, if all of a sudden somebody says Earth's flat, and if you do this, all this shit dies, I might pay a bit of attention. But right now, we need to be paying attention to the here and now and these freaks in human form, because they are monsters, because that's where the problem is, not whether the Earth's flat or not. The satisfaction you're going to get if you prove right tomorrow that the Earth is flat ain't going to change shit in relation to these freaks that are throwing shit at you now and getting ready to enslave your kids and your females. Ain't going to change nothing, so I'm not caring. But the mud flood, I think, has some teeth. Something serious has happened not that long ago, because the architecture was far superior than it has been since 1800s. The architecture back before was so superior, they couldn't build it today. That's why they could put up these big penises everywhere in your cities to change the ley lines. They're creating new ley lines and new energy. Do you know what I mean? The Vatican, yeah, Templars, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but, well, okay, let's all be honest, shall we, and say we don't know. We don't know exactly who, what, where, and when. We don't. But whoever kicked off the Crusades, in my opinion, was bad and evil. And I've said this before as well, like when I studied Charlemagne and all that shit. You've got to look at the church existed full of men in frocks. Okay, men in frocks that preach love. All of a sudden you get this psychotic guy, well, Charles Martel first, and then Charlemagne. So you've got a massive group of guys with frocks on, preaching love, and all these psychos with Charles Martel and Charlemagne. Now, are you going to tell me the Pope had power over that at any point? Because I'd say no. Well, in fact, let's not use the word Pope, because the word Pope doesn't depict the head of the Catholic Church. Never has. So there's a play going on there. There are two other positions that use the term Pope that we know of. One is official in the Coptic Church. The head of the Coptic Church is a Pope. And the Black Pope. And the Jesuits have been around for a long time. So have they installed the word Pope because they know it's determining their chief and transferred it onto the head of the church? Things are not right, and we can't say we know what. But it was powerful for a long time. Do you know what I'm saying? And like I said, I've met some really spiritual Catholic priests in my time. And I mean that. I'm not joking. Very spiritual. They oozed spirituality. They connected with the heavens. I don't care what anybody says. And I have to be honest and say I've been around a lot of Protestant vicars. They don't ooze anything of that. They don't ooze that stuff. I'm not trying to put a thing. I'm just giving you my experience, So I don't think the church, the original church, has always been bad. But it's certainly been a battleground for power for a very long time. But we don't know. What we do know is today it's full of shit and garbage. It's absolute shite. So why anybody would continue to offer up its energy to this system is beyond my comprehension. And that is a fact. Mudflood 3. Yeah, it's a theory, of course. But there is quite a lot of evidence to suggest that what we call cellars in some of these huge buildings in cities weren't. And then you look at a lot of the pictures from San Francisco. The architecture in San Francisco a couple of hundred years ago were unbelievable. You see, they've given us this story that America were full of Native Americans running around with feathers on. I don't think that's correct. I really don't believe that for a second. I think they had the planes and this place, but these cities that are being claimed to have been started from 1492. I don't believe that that's correct. I believe these cities were already there. You look at the architecture. You look at the old pictures of San Francisco and other cities in America. The architecture that were there, because they've knocked it all down. In the 20th century, they'd spent more money knocking down architecture than they have building New York in high-rises. So what I'm saying is this. I don't know, but there's something. They're onto something. And the fact that so many of these buildings have cellars, but when you actually dig down in front of them, they're front doors on the outside of them, not what you'd expect to find in a cellar, which would be a brick wall. And that's also in London. It's the same in London. It's the same in a lot. It's as though something really big happened across the world that created... You see, I thought on terms of maybe some kind of frequency that with that high just made everything sink in like a flash. You made all the earth sort of like a liquid just for a flash. But I don't know, you know. Again, I spent some time looking into it, and I wrote a report called it Is Israel a Big Lie? Understanding Tartaria. And I have to say, it's been top of Google listings for a long time, and it is by far the most popular page on my website, apart from the Who Vaccines as Killers and all the law stuff, especially the Oath of a Police Constable. But the Tartaria is by far the most popular report. So I delved into it a few years ago, and I haven't wasted any more time on it since, because I'm focused to this load of nonsense. Negative timeline. Who's that? Michelle Gibson started in the 1800s after a cataclysm. Well, yeah, this is what I saw when I was looking into that mud flood. Now I did that because they're bigging up Russia as this huge, great, old scale civilization, as though Russia was, well, like I just said, there were no Russia as you see it today. It were only to Moscow. That were it. Yeah, Tartaria was its own thing, and it were the Turkic tribes, the Mongolian tribes, and they held all that land. And there are a lot of images from Google that suggest there could have been a nuclear conflagration, because there's so many craters around all that land. And then you've got the star forts. You can't negate the fact that the star forts existed and still exist today. And they've been massacred. They've been annihilated. And this is where we go back to how they've been destroying. You see, if the unclean want to make a claim that they're the top of the tree, the greatest things in sliced bread, part of their game to get that up your ass is to pretend that everything that's been before were beneath what they're doing today and offering. You know, that's the trickery that they're playing. And they've had to work hard and demolish so much architecture. It's unbelievable. You know, so yeah, it's worth looking at, and it's worth keeping your eye on. Same for Australia, yeah. Exactly. Same in Australia. Buildings there, in fact, me and my Australian friend were discussing this not long ago, because in Melbourne, there's a train station, and I forget what it's called. And you look at the architecture on that it's just phenomenal. Do you know what I'm saying? No, things are not right. They're really not. Our history is just such a load of shit. It's unbelievable. Which, when I started off saying I used to consider myself a good historian, but today I'm not, because I think I were expert in a lot of the propaganda, perhaps, you know. But so much we don't know. No, did they discover USA? Well, look, there were two authors here on Britain back in the day, and they were even in America. You know what I'm saying? One of them died in America, and then they sailed him back here to be buried. And that's way before Templars. That's way before the Middle Ages. Do you know what I'm saying? So this world has been... They've pretended that we've only just come out of our little eggs as amoebas and found the world. It's a lot of shite. I think something seriously cataclysmic happened. I really do. And the pockets of what technology was then, some pockets were kept and they came back as gods. And this is why people think history is depicting extraterrestrials. No, it's just depicting airplanes back in their time that came back to a world. They'd kept, let's say they kept, like they're doing on Antarctica now. I mean, people really need to start looking at Antarctica. It's a huge base for the hoity-toits. It's where they're at. And they're getting ready for some serious... See, now people think they're getting ready for a cataclysm, but if they don't, it's a man-made cataclysm. We're talking nuclear conflagration and whatever weapon. I mean, they've got scalar weaponry. And they've got that big thing in Switzerland and France. This is technology beyond nuclear. I mean, nuclear is like gunpowder in comparison to what they're actually playing with. Scalar technology. Well, scalar technology, if I understand it correctly, it's quantum. So it sets off in this realm, but it moves into the other realm and then just enters this realm, and you can't trace its source because it just appears out of the unseen. What are they doing? But whatever it is they're doing, their plan is to get rid of the massive population. Doesn't matter whether you're Chinese, doesn't matter whether you're Muslim, Indian, Pakistani, Kashmiri, French, Swiss. It's all about the elite getting rid of the masses because they don't need them. They want it back to Middle Ages where you can go 50 miles in your little carriage and not see anybody. But of course, they've got the Bugatti Veyrons. So it's a different game again, but they just want rid of the farm animals. And the farm animals are happy to go to the slaughterhouse, it would appear today, because they believe they have to do what the government says. It's ridiculous, let's be honest. Egyptian artifact, yeah, exactly. I mean, Egypt were a huge civilization. And yeah, they found cocaine in the mummies, have they not? They found cocaine in the mummies in Egypt. That's South America, isn't it? And look at these pyramids all over South America. You know what I mean? We really didn't discover them before because of jungles. I mean, these pyramid builders, there's been such a massive civilization once before, and these huge monuments were a part of that global civilization. So maybe Atlantis wasn't 10,000 years ago. Perhaps Atlantis were like 2,000 years ago. Do we know for sure? We don't know. We do not know. We only know what they've piffled out to us. We probably would have known if they hadn't burnt down Alexandria. But as I said, they didn't burn it down full of books. There was nothing in it if they burnt it down. Because they're not stupid. Monkey, fish, frogs. What do you mean? Yeah, Vedic artifact. Well, I mean, I studied all the Vedas back in the day, and basically, it's still not known whether the Sanskrit came first or the runes. Yeah, the Sanskrit or the runes, and there's misconceptions about the swastika. Okay, Hitler reversed it, but if you look at the pole star and you look at the plough, in a year's cycle, it turns around and creates the image of a swastika. Yeah. Is that what it was depicting? I would say, yeah. I wouldn't even say it's a sun symbol. How can it be a sun symbol? It's the polar star, unless they used to depict the polar star as a sun, which is quite possible. It's very possible. It's the only thing that doesn't move in the sky. It's that pivotal point of the heavens, whatever they are we're looking at. And if you follow the pan or the plough round Ursa Major, it forms a swastika in a full circle. That's what it does. And my grandfather used to say to me, actually, because I remember once I went to Lake District and I got excited and went and bought a black Maltese cross, what the Hitler wore. You're a kid, he didn't know this. And he was like, absolutely gobsmacked, couldn't believe what I'd done. And it was just... So he sat me down and he said, I know why you're attracted to that. he says, and it's not because of what the Nazis did. He said, because what the Nazis did is take all the symbols that existed and reverse them. And I'm only a kid thinking, what are you talking about, Grandad? Just look at me cross, you know, hey, it's great, look at that, it's fantastic. But then when I got home, that's when my mum sort of explained what I'd done and shocked my granddad with. But he did say that to me. And obviously, you remember them things. So, yeah, they've inverted all our old symbols and all our old everything, our cultures, our heritage. They've inverted it to make it into something it's not. Soon open ceremony. Oh, yeah, that was disgusting. I mean, if it's not blatant to anybody. Mind you, no, they're into Lady Gaga. They all just thought you were an extension of Lady Gaga's latest video. Females. That's your females today. I mean, what actually are they? Whatever we would describe today's female. I mean, of course, I'm not talking about all of you. Don't get me wrong. But I can't work them out. These lips. Right, I were at a friend's last night. And I don't watch telly. But I was sat there and Coronation Street come on. Now, I've not watched Coronation Street since Hilda Ogden were in it. And first thing I noticed were all the actors had makeup on that made them look like depressed, ill. Zombies, some of them. And I'm thinking, I said to her, I said, why are all these actors looking like the zombies? She said, oh, well, I never thought of that. I said, well, you won't if you watch it all the time. It was just ridiculous. And then there was this spastic thing come on where they're having surgery. Oh, my God. What has happened to females? What has happened to you? Why do you think you look good with them lips? You look ridiculous. I've seen so many beautiful girls turn themselves into Sylvester Stallone's mother. It's quite frightening, to be honest. Anyway, I'm going to be upsetting old girls now. I'm never going to get laid. Right, never mind that. Maximus, Britain's Hidden History. I might press that after, because I'll have a look. But do you believe in manifestation? My dear girl, you wouldn't believe what I've seen. You would not believe what I've experienced in the esoteric. But it's my personal experience, so I don't discuss it. But yes, I don't believe in anything. I either know something or I don't know. And if I want to know, I'll seek it out. But belief, that is the biggest problem. It's I believe him or I believe her. I believe that book. No, belief is no good. Think, I don't know. It's possible, but never say you believe them, ever. You know? Everything is either false or real. And you have to choose. And if you choose it's real and it's not, follow the path, it'll show you that it's not real at some point. You know? This is why everybody has to follow their own path, because that path's been set up for you to show you what you need to see in order you can raise yourself to the best possible expression of a man, male or female, that you can. Who put obelisks everywhere? Well, necromancy, ladies and gentlemen. What are they doing in a court? They are raising the dead. Do you mind if I have a fag? I don't usually smoke in my house, to be honest. I don't usually do fags at house, but nobody's told me to shut up yet, so I haven't shut up. But obelisks. Well, if you trace the obelisks everywhere, you can see where the seats of power are. The main one is outside the embankment, Adelphi House, on the embankment, Cleopatra's. The other one of them went to America. Follow the obelisks of Egypt. Now, what people don't realise is this: Caesar, Egypt. The reason why they killed Caesar was A, because he was being financed by the Carthaginians, okay, the Phoenicians, and B, because he were about to let Egypt into Rome. Now, if you want to look what Egypt were like then, Egypt was like Soviet Union. That's what it were. And its importance came in the fact that it provided all the grains to the empire. But the reason why they killed him was A, because he was financed by the Phoenicians, the traders, and B, because he were bringing Soviet Union into Rome. Seneca was also financed by the Venetians, which is why he abused Boudica, in order that, see, Rome were having its battles over in Rome, but Britain was still massively Roman legioned up, so it was still a power. And Constantine, he took over Rome with the British army. Yeah, people don't even know that. So they had to destroy. They were annihilating Rome, but they had to destroy the Rome's power here. And Seneca did that by exciting Boudica to annihilate the Roman legions. How about that? So Rome hasn't always been a bad thing, I don't think. Belief is the enemy of knowing. That's absolutely true. Crow 777 who's that? Somebody keeps sending me emails from that, and I don't know who they are. Crow 777. Crow 777. I don't know who they are. Belief is for fools. I don't care what you think. I only care what you can prove. But then sometimes you can't prove what you know. If it's unseen stuff, you know what I'm saying. So don't bother trying. Otherwise, you become David Icke. You know, you become David Icke then, and you're talking bollocks to set everybody off anything of worth. Because what does he give you? Fantasy. He gives you fantasy. And the fantasies love it. But he doesn't give you anything. What does he give you? Oh, love everybody! No, I ain't loving some of these freaks that are coming over here from La La Land. Because they're not going to come here to love me. You know what I'm saying? I'm a man and I'll defend myself. That's what men do. Males. That's what we do. Well, I know they don't do now. They're snowflakes. They're shaving their balls. They're not really men, are they? They're just, what are they? What would you call them? So yeah, with bagged females, what would you call these fluffy things that call themselves male? Boys. I don't know what they are, but I don't like them. A synthetic version of the original Earth to keep us disconnected from God's source. No, you disconnect yourself. You disconnect yourself by your behavior. That's why Scripture tells us we must all walk at our own salvation. Well, yeah, because you're born in. Not everything's contrived and controlled, but we are born, and there will be certain things that we have to experience, certain meetings we have to have to undo the karma that we've collected over these times that we keep coming in. If you are earthbound when you die, if you don't, the gates don't open, you go to heaven, as it were, you remain earthbound. And when you're earthbound, you're under command of the critters that control the earth. And this belongs to Satan. So you don't want to be calling your ancestors back, really, these psychics, do you? Because they're under command of what? Think about that. So this is why it's important that you stay moral. Because otherwise you're coming back. But you might come back. You can go to the heavens and then choose to come back anyway. That's the choice. But I'm saying, where everybody's trying to escape this prison that Earth's become, because it were created as it were moved into the battleground to justify whether man is true. And so this is the battleground, and the battle is within us. Which one are you feeding? Are you feeding the good, or are you feeding the fruitcake with your work, your life, your verbiage? You know, obviously it's gone to the way, innit? Most people down here today are serving the fruit bat. This plastic surgery was to make the anti-human creatures blend in more. I don't know. It's that castle called vanity. You know, it's a castle. There's castles. As you go, you know, which castle are you fixed in? Because you're staying in it. You ain't moving into any others if that's where they've got you, because that's how they'll move you in this world from that standpoint. And if you get stuck in any of them castles, even if you're wealthy as hell, you're stuck in a castle. You are stuck there. And that's where you're moving from. It doesn't mean to say you're not doing anything good. I'm not saying that, but you've got to not be trapped by any of that shit. And you've got to be autonomous and move as you see fit, which means you don't listen to anybody. You don't even listen to your mother. You don't listen to anybody. You listen to your own inner calling, if it's true. And if it's not true, you can only get through this by listening to your inner calling, because that's how you're on the right path that will help you raise yourself to your highest expression. If you're following somebody else's, how can you possibly improve your being? You can't. You've got to follow your own path, your own star from within. Don't follow anybody else's, because their star's right for them, but it's not right for you, is it? Until then, I don't really. What are you saying? Well, you can have too much knowledge as well. You can send you batty. I once worked on a loony bin at Lancaster, and get out. Do you know what I was so surprised about? How many super intelligent people were in there, but they'd gone too far and got lost. And I was talking to it with one guy in particular, and he just said something to me, and I'm thinking, is this guy? He's a fruit bat, obviously. So I said something about a particular race that not many people have ever heard of, and he were off. Poof! I'm thinking, bloody hell! And there were a few of them like that. So you can go get too much knowledge going on and lose yourself. So you have to be careful. You've got to be grounded. You've got to keep yourself grounded all the time. You know, mind control, two major continuing conflict. But well, you know, if people, it's like I said, people like First World War state, people believe they have to do what the government said because they're ignorant. The government is a servant of a man. So if you're not a man, you're going to be the servant of the servant. David Icke. He did write one good book, and The Truth Will Set You Free was an excellent book. And what happened after that? It's called plagiarism, to be honest. Stuart Swerdlow. Stuart Swerdlow. What's he called? Old guy with glasses. He's been around for a long time for his occult knowledge. Can't remember his name. If you look at the books, David Icke's books after Truth Will Set You Free, he's basically just plagiarising John Coleman, Stuart Swerdlow, Zulu, Nutjob, Great Home, what? I can't remember his name. I nearly said it then. You know what I mean? Anyway, that occult expert, Jordan Maxwell. So that all his books after that, apart from, I mean, I stopped reading his books after. I think I read 2 after Big Secret back in the day, and I just thought, this guy's a fruit bat. I'm not even letting him infect my mind anymore. I'm not. It's a shame, really. But when you're a channeling of the Theosophists, the masters, it's only going to go one way. Look what happened to Hitler. He was a channeler of the Theosophists, and look what he did. What do you think of Donald Trump? Thinking is a process to knowing. Okay, so what do I know about Donald Trump? Well, his father was more than likely a Jesuit because he was very tied into the Catholic knightly orders, and he took Donald every year to the uber Catholic meet in America, every year. So whether he's a Jesuit himself, he's being educated by the Jesuits. So what is Donald Trump? Well, Donald Trump was, in my opinion now, this is an opinion, they want America destroyed. America has to become divided. It has to enter a civil war. You cannot do that until you've divided it into two sides. So through Renaissance technologies, so Robert Mercer, who have been correlating all the social media data since maybe 2012, and they picked up the most prominent phrases that the Americans were using on social media, one of which will make America great again. And I can't remember the other buzzwords that Donald Trump were given. But Donald Trump's move to become president set off okay and then faltered. And it wasn't until Robert Mercer came in and gave him these buzzwords that Donald Trump's election campaign took off. So Donald Trump represented what real America wanted and then brought it to the fore, and they call it right wing. So Donald Trump created the division needed to buffer what were already existent in the Bolshevik left, because that's been being pushed since the Federal Reserve was set up. So Donald Trump's the divider. All they had with the left psychopaths, what they class as the right or just normal people, were just normal people getting on with the day-to-day. Donald Trump had to remind them, or infect in their mind, that hang on a minute, you are one side here, you have to be a side and you have to be against that side and blah, blah, blah. So that is what I see in relation to the enigma that is Donald Trump. A lot of Americans have fallen out of me because of that, because I've been telling them this from the get-go, and they don't like me anymore. And they used to love me, and now they don't like me because I'm not playing along with the fantasy. It's like this with Meghan Markle. It's a script, it's an act. Because the last place to be demolished is the British constitutional realm, because it's the home of common law. We all know that this royal family is debauched and a freak show. We know it. Only the sycophants, them the Masons, getting something out of being in that network, they're the only ones that can't see the reality of things. But Diana kicked it off, and now her little ginger minge son is continuing it, and they brought in a mulatto. I get done for that. I got kicked off Twitter for attacking them on that. You know what they did on Twitter? So I'm giving them loads on Twitter. They just couldn't rebuff what I was saying. So I was banging Israel because they were calling anti-Semitic, and I'm saying, well, what? I'm anti-language, because if you look up Semitism, it's a description of a group of languages. So what are you saying? And you're Khazars, and you've got no play in Semitism whatsoever. So they didn't like that because they can't beat me. And then I was really bagging the living daylights out of Ginger and his little critter. And so all of a sudden I got this follower, Prince Harry, on my Twitter. I've actually made a report and shown thing on my website. And so I thought, hey up, what's going on here then? So I thought to myself, all right, let's play. So I got on a private message to him and I said, hello, young prince. Well, straight away then they knew, I think it was Intel doing it. Intel knew straight away I weren't going to be enamoured by this, and I was going to treat him as a kid as he were. And they sent me a message back, and I thought to myself, he's either thick as pig shit, or this is some foreign idiot playing this game. Obviously, it was Twitter. It had to be somebody in Twitter. So I sent him another message, and again, it made it clear that I weren't going to be treating him like a prince. I was going to be treating him like a little kid. And I think I got one more message after that, and I didn't respond because it was obvious it was Intel. It was just obvious. But yeah, I was giving him some pain then. And anyway, I got kicked off Twitter then. I've been on it for years. I've been on Twitter for years, but I never actually used it. I only ever used it if I made a report, I put it up on Twitter. And then when I got kicked off all newspapers, I realised that if I used Twitter, I could get back on all newspapers. So I did. I had thousands of followers. It was unbelievable. People actually loved me on that Twitter, and I'm not surprised they killed it. I'm really not surprised. So I was causing havoc. But yeah, so this mark, it's just a script, which is why it's gone ballistic. They're all talking about it. It's because it's a script. It just wants us to get rid, or again, to divide England. So you've got COVID division, vaccine, non-vaxxers, masks and I mean, I haven't worn a mask anywhere. It's ridiculous. But I'm finding that there's a lot of young blighty girls, young uns, not wearing masks. I love it. So they must be good females. But everybody else, it's a sea of masks. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely off the wall. What is the world coming to? Alphonse Faglio. I've never heard of him in my life. So I don't know who he is. Do you think that mediation can open you up to demon entities like drugs? Oh, of course it can. If you were asking someone to come in, but look, you've got to understand that this world operates. There's the physical world, and then there's the unseen world. And the unseen world is in the same space. They're just different frequencies. So if you want to look into the third world, you better get your third eye operational, because that's just insight into the unseen, and not just the immediate. You can go further with your third eye. Now, I used to practice all that stuff, but I still had children. I mean, my 4 children were still only youngsters, and there was just something happened. Probably about 2008, and I must have said something to my young lad, and he just looked at me, and I thought to myself, ooh, that's not going down well. I need to stop this nonsense and just become normal again, because, I was bringing up children, and I didn't want them to think I were a bloody lunatic. When rest of world thought I were a lunatic, and I thought, well, that's fine. I don't care about rest of world, but I don't want my son seeing me as a lunatic. So I jumped off the shamanic path. I have not returned to it. That's not to say I don't have connection. I do. And I do have sight if I wish it. But I don't wish it. I'm concentrating on down here. This is where I am. This is where I'm rooted. And this is what path I am operational on. So, of course, if you're calling things in, you don't know what it is. You have no idea what it is. Just because it tells you it's this or pretends it's this. You see, if you go through the mystery school, you'll learn the difference. Because that's exactly what I learned in there. You can then tell, you can see for yourself. But never trust anything fully. It doesn't, never trust. No, yeah, it does. So you be very careful. And you never know who you're talking to. Just because you go to see a psychic and they say, oh, your brother's come back, blah, blah, blah. Do you know that? Just because they tell you something that they know because they're watching. You see, as above, so below. They can see in here, but we can't see out there unless you activate your third eye. This serious stuff. You need to keep yourself solid and keep off medication, because that it breaks down your auric barriers. Your aura, if you want to picture it, is all different frequencies. And between each frequency is a barrier so that they don't intermingle. Because in each frequency is a realm with entities, And you don't know whether you're at the low edge, if it's pretending to be further than it is. Like the white light. You don't want the white light. You want the golden light. The white light's the con. That's the trick. It's the golden light. That's to the highest realms. Not white. My God, there's loads of you talking. If you disconnect with the sentence by using a legal name, then those who are in receipt of benefits can never stand up as the man or woman. No, they can't. How can they? Look, a lot of people are going to die. A lot of people are going to be enslaved. That's happening now. You're already enslaved if you're stuck to the system. You know, I've been homeless because I won't go on system. I'd rather be homeless than get on system. Stuff that shit. I want nothing off them. Nothing. I'll die first. You know? No. I'm not saying I'll take my own life. I wouldn't do that. But no. I don't want anything off them. Nothing. Not a penny. Not a bean. I just find an old mine and live in that. There's plenty of them up here. If we disconnect from the system by... Oh, I've done that one. Nice to have this fellowship, though. Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you what, I'm getting a lot of emails from all over the world, so people are taking an interest. So I must be giving something of worth. But like I said, with this court case, it's all new what we're doing. And I did set off to do this with the idea that I'd start to give you the protocols I'm putting together. Maybe we'll have to do that another time. But I just thought I'd try a live stream to see. Because I did do some before, but I weren't comfy doing them. I really were uncomfortable doing them, but I'm a lot more comfortable. I seem to be, I've settled into doing videos now. So I thought I'd give it a shot and see if anybody gives a toss, you know. And so far, there's 75 of you there, so I'm happy with that. If 79 people interested in listening to me blag on, it's probably worth doing more live streams. It's not a long cigarette, trust me. That's a fag. It's just a normal fag. It's actually Pueblo. There's no shit in it. There's no chemicals when they grow it, and there's no chemicals when they harvest it. Before that, I used to smoke American Spirit. I'm fussy about what I smoke. I'm fussy in the way I give myself cancer. So, that's a long cigarette. No, it's not. It's just, and I use raw papers. They don't have chlorine in them. And I have to say, I used to have a lot of problems in my mouth with chlorine, and it's all in papers. So since I've smoked them, I don't have that same effect. That's not to say it's not doing something else, but I don't have that crappy taste in my gob with that. I have smoked cannabis. Oh my God, I smoked it for years. But that would keep Rambo in his cage. I don't think I need it anymore, you know. I'm in control. He says. Yeah. I'm on the fourth day of giving up fags. Yeah, I've given up fags a lot as well. And I'll tell you what, even if, I've been smoking since I was 9 because I wanted to be grown up. And I enjoy a fag. I enjoy a fag like you wouldn't believe. And I have given up a couple of times. The last time I had a lung infection and I had to give up. And I did 15 months. But I wanted a fag all the time. So I thought, stop this, I'm having a fag, and I did. But I'll tell you what, just giving up for a year, even, your lungs heal. Whatever issues you were having with your lungs before, just give up for a year. Your lungs are as good as new when you kick off. Because I do cycling, mountain biking, coming down them hills like a madman, just to see if I can kill myself. Wow, when you're not smoking. And I'm 54, for God's sake. I'm fitter than some young'uns that do it. So, I don't believe a word this. My old man smoked Capstan full strength and roll-ups with no filter. And when he was dying of cancer, his heart and his lungs were banging away like he was still in his 20s. So it's a load of bollocks that smoking gives you cancer. The chemicals in it might give you cancer. And I'm not promoting smoking as something you should all do. But I've never found, and like I said, I've given up twice, and I think whatever problems my lungs were getting into back then, just giving up them 2 times has sorted that out. Well, I have no problems in my lungs whatsoever. I do a lot of walking up hills, and I don't have a problem with my lungs. My little legs, but not my lungs. That's one thing I don't like as you get older. You start losing all your bulk. I used to be solid. It just disappears. I don't like that. So, Are you not fed up yet? Yeah, True State of Three were a bloody good book. It was a good book. Financed by a Jewish guy. A lot of plagiarism in the conspiracy. Yeah, but I mean, no, let's be honest. Plagiarism is, let's put it in its context, but you're not plagiarizing if you're throwing stuff, if you're passing stuff around for people to see. You're passing things around. But when you're making money and claiming it as your own work, that's plagiarism. And Jordan Maxwell weren't happy with David Icke, and John Coleman weren't happy with David Icke because he plagiarized it word for word. I mean, he did give him the kudos. I'll give him that. But when you listen to him, which I don't listen to him. I remember when I first went on the internet, I went straight onto Alex Jones because I thought, hey, John Wayne, who's this geezer? And I pretty much took over his website because it got to a point where I impress all Yanks that well. They love me. And once we got over the idea that I couldn't spell because and I said, no, I'm English and I'm spelling English. You Yanks have took all phonetics here. And once we got that across, I couldn't do wrong. So what were happening were people were going on his site and looking at where I were commenting. And everybody were on that report and we were just having a right shindig. So he kicked us off and banned us. He did Alex Jones back then, and I've never gone back since. Shame, really, because if he were actually working for the good guys, the guy is a force to be reckoned with. Really is. But he's a tosser because he's playing the game. And Owen Benjamin, he was an interesting chap. I don't get to see him anymore because he's been kicked off everything. But Owen Benjamin is a comedian and a bloody good one as well. And I catched him about 4 years ago, or maybe around that time. And it would just, when your YouTube videos, another one comes on. Well, that had happened, and I weren't noticing, and I just looked, and this guy just sat in his car. And I thought, who's this fella? And I listened to him for a bit, and he was making a lot of sense. And I thought, I don't know who you are, but you sound all right. And then I listened to his whole video and left it at that. And then maybe 6 months after that, I came across him again doing a campfire thing. He bought a big pad, and he was starting to turn it into a sort of little farm. But he was having campfire sessions, and he was drinking. And obviously, he'd been in Hollywood and all that stuff, so he knew a lot about all that stuff. And as he got pissed, he was starting to really express what he'd seen in Hollywood. And I thought, ooh, this guy's dynamite. So I started to watch him all the time with that. And he had an experience with Alex Jones because I think he worked on his show for a while. And gave you a lot of information about the reality of what Alex Jones is. And he said himself, though, that, Alex himself is actually a decent fella. He could be if he were on the right side, I'd probably be his best mate. Do you know what I'm saying? On the internet. Because if he were on the right side, you couldn't fault, you'd have to say he had balls. But he's not on the right side, so he's not got balls. And it's a shame. It really is. Having said that, he does give you, if you're looking for info, to go and run off on yourself, he used to give you good stuff, but it's that little 20% that he's either not talking about something or he's diverting your attention onto something else. So it is a shame. But William Cooper outed him, didn't he? Before he died, William Cooper told you all who Alex Jones were. And I did one at first. He was one of the first guys as well I got into when I got on the internet for the first time. Because that guy made some serious sense. I liked him a lot, William Cooper. Great guy. Well, that's true. A friend of mine got sectioned a couple of weeks ago. So yes, you're not wrong there about this trying to say that. They've set that going now, If they can get you in their hands, they'll put you into nuts out. And they're forcing him to take medication, He said, if you don't take the pills, we'll inject you. That's England, 2021. these people are evil. If they have a bigger platform than mine, I'm fine with them getting the info out. Well, again, yeah, I mean, information is information, and it doesn't matter where it's coming from. If it's got value and you're a solid critter, you can make use of that. And if it's being put out in a bad way, you can turn it good, can't you? So, and David Icke, for what I've said about him, I do feel sorry for him, because that guy has suffered and the guy's done some work. You know, he's put a lot of people on the path. So I'll give him that. You know, I don't hate the guy, but he gives nothing. Fantasy, that's all he gives. And people swoon at his feet. He's not giving what he should be giving. You know, and he lives at Isle of Wight, for God's sake. And Miles Mathis, I don't know whether any of you lot have heard of Miles Mathis. That's a mind and half, that. Well, he's traced him back to peerage anyway, so, you know. And the fact that he lives on Isle of Wight tells me he's a player. But I could be wrong, you know. You never actually know. But I'll judge him on his works. And he's not giving us anything of worth. He's giving us fantasy. You know, the moon isn't a spaceship. I don't know what the fuck it is, but it ain't a spaceship. You can see through it, for God's sake. So, what channels do I watch on YouTube? Well, do you know what? Not many now. There isn't any left. They've all gone. I'd say in the last 4 years, I had quite a lot that I used to watch religiously when they were on, because I enjoyed the banter. There's not many left. Observation Deck. Rob's a good lad. I like what Rob puts out. Who else do I watch? I can't really say I watch anybody, because they've all gone. Yeah, they're just not. It's just they're not there anymore. They've all gone. I mean, I'm in my own world, mate. I live in my own little world. It's you'd be surprised at stuff. I read more than anything, though. You know, I do more reading. I do keep my eyes on what's going on with the occult, because that's important, and I do watch that stuff because I need to keep my eyes on what they're doing, because that's becoming a real power now in the open, and I get a lot of attacks. You won't believe. I mean, the witches that throw shit at me is fucking unbelievable. It works, though. It works to a point. I will not be defeated until I'm ready to finish. If they have a bigger, yeah, but what channels do you watch? I only guide to people with best source anyway, and I'm not trying to invent the wheel. Well, like I said, most of good ones have all been kicked off. I don't like BitChute. I don't like that. Brand new tube won't let me put anything up, so that's a bag of shit. BitChute let me put it up. 153, Jason Boss, he's a good lad. And what I've realised is I can't put HD on there, and I think that were a problem we're having. But Jason Boss is a good egg. He needs support, actually, to keep that channel up, because they hate him. They hate him. That's 153 News. It's brilliant video platform. In fact, he could do with having more real good people putting the stuff up on there. You just can't put HD up. But he is a hell of he's a gem. He's a good lad, and he does need support, but he needs good video makers. He needs good shit on his stuff. So if you do make videos, it might be worth you buffering them down and putting them on that 153, because they hate him. They absolutely hate him. Anything that gets banned, he has it up, and he does all his best to keep it up. So Jason Boss, good lad. Who else do I like? Owen Benjamin, but I say I can't find him anymore. I don't know where he is. He's not even on DLive anymore. That's a bag of shit and all. They told me that I signed up to that, and they said you've got to get 3,000 subscribers before they'll let me put anything on. I thought, well, cheers and see you later. Your acts, Maxwell's, Tazarians, and Egans of this world are for good use. Yeah, Tazarian, I had some conversations with him back in the day. He knows his stuff. He's not without, but I just weren't so sure. I've not looked at him for years. I just weren't so sure that he were actually on the right track, as it were. Jordan Maxwell. It's a love-hate relationship with Jordan Maxwell. I've not watched him for a long, long time, but back in the day, I did. And back in the day, I weren't so keen on his angle, but I think now, 10 years on, I think he has a lot more value than I perhaps gave him back in the day. I think it might have been because he was opposing a lot of stuff that I sort of held as okay. But, you know, I'm always moving me. I don't hold fat in one idea or anything. I'm always happy to learn. And I did watch something not long ago and I thought, it makes it's a bit more relevant to me now. I think I'm a bit more in tune with him, but you never know. You never know. But he does know what he's talking about. I'll give him that. He's an expert in his field. And a worthy study, without a doubt. As with Sean Ross, he's a worthy study, but he needs to get off the anger if he wants to move forward with his work. Because, you know, he's too angry. You cannot blame the entire nation of Switzerland because of the shit he's had off the power in Switzerland. You can't do that. I mean, I've never had any trouble since I moved my service to Switzerland. I've had everything shut down everywhere. Every time I set up a website, I was shut down. I've never had any trouble in Switzerland. And I find the Swiss to be very matter of fact. They're very Germanic, so they're very masculine. See, I've always seen Germany as the masculine, as England is the feminine side of the same coin, if you will. So they're very masculine, but, you know, they're not stupid people. They're forthright, I'll give them that. But I have never had any trouble at all with Switzerland. I really haven't. So I can't go with Sean Ross's idea that everybody in Switzerland is a Templar. Just like everybody in England isn't a Templar or a Mason or a Jesuit. In fact, the majority of English are just trying to get by, you know. The English are actually a very pleasant race. Or they were. These younger generations have been screwed up by their own parents and on and on and on back. But when I was growing up, they were a very pleasant people, the English. They'll fight you all day, and for a drop of an hat, you know, step outside if that were the ones, step outside. So the English did like to fight, and they did understand the idea of being a male, but pleasant people. And the mantra that I grew up with from the old generation was fair play. If it wasn't fair play, you'd be fighting. It was that kind of a thing. Fair play, they were happy all day. As long as it was fair play, because that's what everybody used to say. That's just so changed. It doesn't exist anymore. You don't see it. It's just people scratching about, trying to survive on benefits. Single mothers, kids are insane because they've vaxxed them. And the kids are insane. You know, the kids are absolute... but there's no father there saying, no, shut up and you'll do what I tell you. They're going, oh, well, do you think? And should we talk about it? No, shut your gob, you little shit, and you'll do what I say. When you're 18, then you can do what you want. I ain't there anymore. It's gone. No dad. Dad's run off chasing his winkle and heroin and other things like that. Or kicked out because the female were bringing in the sacred feminine, man. The state to be the husband. That's the sacred feminine. And the feminists, they don't even know what planet they're on. They're insane. I better kick this off in a bit. With 2.5 hours, for God's sake. YouTube are going to be kicking me off for having too long. Are you not fed up yet? But what people need to start doing now, chickens, you need to start growing your own shit. Even if you've got a backyard, dig it up, flags, and get growing. Something. Just something. I grew tobacco last year, you probably know. That is so easy to grow, it's unbelievable. It grows all by itself and just gives you leaf after leaf after leaf. So if you can't afford to fag it and you want to fag it, get some grown. And you can start smoking it within about a month. So you start growing it, and them first leaves that come, you can smoke them pretty quick. Well, Gulf Berkeley Street and the Jesuits Roman Empire. Who? Joggler 66. Never heard him. Just keep away from that psycho. What's he called? Vatican assassins. I mean, he's so tapped, it's unbelievable. I can't remember his call. Keep off him because he's a nut job. I've got the gift of the gab. You're quite right there, kid. Ice Age Farmer has a lot of good info regarding food sources and water farming. Yeah, because we need to get into this. You know, people need, because although they're going to screw this everything up with food, and if you haven't had the shot, see, militia's the way. That's England. Militia, so it's in law. It's within the law. Is militia. Say no more. Black Search Research above is below some of my favourites on YouTube. I've not heard of these people. I'll look at these after when we jack this in and see what I'll give them a check out. Because I have run out of people to watch. To be honest. Ice Age Farmer. Oh, interesting. Need a wife in Australia. Must be able to catch chickens. Well, I know a lot of people in Australia, and from what I can gather, it's missus that's out there changing engine in car. That fellas are running up and down asking how much they paid for each other's shoes. Australian men don't seem to be what they used to be, you know. In fact, most Australian men, whether they know it or not, were how the Jesuits kicked out all the warriors from Northumbria and sent them all off to Australia, which is why they're all big. But they don't seem to be very smart. Apparently, if you go to Australia, you'll not get much of a conversation outside. How much did you pay for your shoes and your jumper? So, and that comes from Australians. I'm not making it up. You know what I mean? So it doesn't look like it's the place for me, Australia. Who would I chat to? I'd be bored shitless. Probably have to go and visit abos. So, right. Stocking seeds up, yeah, that's another good one, because a lot of these seeds now, annuals and not perennials, they've changed that. You know, they're changing everything, even seeds, for God's sake. It's ridiculous. Is that Agora? I did a big report on them years ago. Massive, powerful bunch, and they're all tied to British monarchy. Because Queen Elizabeth II, as a fiction, has been put up as the figurehead of all this. It doesn't mean she says she has the power. She doesn't have any power. She's a member of the Inner Temple. So the Inner Temple is dictating terms. Feminism, it was a way to... Yeah, well, that's true again. Get the female... Well, it's breaking up of the family. That's what it's all been about, the breakup of the family unit, because it's solid. I mean, who can get into a family unit when how they used to be? Nobody. That's when dads used to be knocking on doors, knocking dads out whose kids had been trying to mess with their kids in a nasty way. We sorted all around our own stuff out. We didn't need the police. We didn't need all these stupid little cells of garbage to deal with our own stuff. We did it ourselves. Because males were involved. No, they're not. They're all busy watching porn and playing with themselves. An Aussie and a real men are rare, yeah. They all are wearing skinny pants and man the bun. Yeah. It's ridiculous. You should go to my channel on YouTube. Oh, have you got one on there? Well, I will do, mate. Put me a link up and I'll go there tomorrow when I look through this. Because I don't like listening to my own videos. Because all I'm seeing is me cock-ups. You know what I mean? Secrets of Saturn. A lot of bullshit going on about Saturn. I'm Aquarius, and so I have Saturn and Uranus. Although you look at me astrology, I'm all Uranus. Probably why I'm tapped. Because he's on his side, isn't he? So that's the eldest geezer. That's the top god, isn't it? There we go. Try showing me. He's adapt 230. I see his form. Good channels. Mind of LNYT, audio, autodidactic. It's a good channel. Okay. Yeah, he's a good lad, is Rob. I spoke to Rob. I like him. But he is a southerner. You know what I mean? Actually, he lives in awe of the absolute power, does our Rob. So I'm surprised he's still alive. Urban Farmer, Curtis Stone, Mind Unveiled. Oh, I'll tell you who I do watch. Not because I go with all the interviews they do, but I do like the two guys that do it. That oh shit, I can't remember what it's called. They're from Denmark. Some at TV. I can't remember what they're called. He looks like Dracula. Geezer that does it. He does look like Dracula. What's it called? Can't remember what it's called. You probably know what it is, but I like them. They do get some nut jobs on, but they do have some good people on as well. Anyone in the Midlands, UK area? That's a strange place. Midlands. Oh, I don't know what's happened there, but that is a strange place. Alchemy and astrology. Not Midlands, but Devon. Well, Devon. I love Cornwall. Cornwall is my place. Oh, do I love that place. And I think Cornwall loves me, actually, because I'd feel right at home in Cornwall. And we used to go when we were kids a lot every year with mum and dad, like surfing. Yes, surfing's good. But I used to do a lot of sub-aqua. A lot of water skiing and mountain climbing and shooting. I used to love shooting, shotguns, rifles, pistols, anything I can get my hands on then. I used to love it. Paintballing. I love all that. I've got a really powerful paintball gun. But you don't get to do much of it anymore because if anybody sees you with a gun, you get SAS, SBS, Delta Force all over you. Yeah. I eat what I aim at, is what I'll say. What are we discussing? Oh, Stella. Well, we've discussed Stella. It's done. I've been at it 2.5 hours. Nobody's telling me to go away. I wish somebody told me to shut up. You have to put, when you subscribe to this channel, Stella, you've got to hit notifications so you get it. Because I put it out this afternoon that I'm going to do a live stream, so we were just testing it out. It seems to be going down all right. Than us. She's a Lancashire bird, so she don't know what I'm saying when I'm Dano's kick. That knows what I'm saying, don't that cock? Hey up. Danielle, greetings from Bolton. Hello, Bolton. Northerners. Nearly Manx, actually. Air kids. Air kid. Danny Howell, Air kid. Age of Truth. That's it. That's the one. I like them. They're funny. He's hilarious, him. I like him. And he's a smart cookie. And they do have some good people on. But they have some fruit bats on as well. But, you know, time for bed, Sean. Yeah. Well, I won't be in bed yet. But well, I don't do live Stella as a general rule. But I thought I'd do one today just to give it a whirl. So we might do a few more. I might do a Saturday, odd Saturday. Shut up. Thank you, Karen World. I love it. And with that, you bunch of nutters, I will say, till the next time.